Call me Hunter, I'm making a home video. Okay, this is interesting if you didn't see that Biden called Trump George in the context of saying, we need to stop 4 more years of George. So he's kind of losing his train of thought, and he's trying to say that we can't have another 4 years of the president. Pardon me. Of the president. That's the problem that he has. We can't have this president. So let's just play the video.
Georgia going to be 4 more years of George kind of country we're going to be. 4 more years.
So this is kind of cut up even further. I don't know why this says it's the full video. He says we need to figure out we need to decide which kind of country we're going to be after 4 more years of George with Trump. So then he finds it, and you can tell he's losing his mind. He's saying the wrong one, saying the wrong name, and then all of a sudden, then he finds it, and you just watch.
What kind of country we're going to be? 4 more years of George. Georgia, he's going to find ourselves in a position where, if Trump gets elected, we're going to be in a different world.
You saw that he was just totally spinning with no traction until he was with Trump, and then he had more new words to say. His brain literally broke. So people thought right off the bat with this little bitty clip, they said, okay, well, he's at a fundraiser speaking, and he must have been referring to Donald Trump, saying that he is George. And of course, everyone's saying George, you mean George Bush? Like, it would make sense that in your dementia, Alzheimer's brain, that Joe Biden might flip back in his brain to a time when George Bush, either of them, were president. Maybe he was referring to George W. Bush in his mind. Maybe he was referring just to anyone named George. Maybe he thought Donald was George. But here's what they say. They say he was speaking to George Lopez. They said he was speaking to George Lopez. Right here, Democrats point out that he's speaking to George Lopez, who was hosting the virtual rally, who was not on the screen as he said this. So Biden says, we got to think about what kind of country we're going to be with 4 more years of George, and his wife then says, Trump. And then he collects himself and picks it up. So people are wondering, did he mean George Bush or George W. Bush? In other words, was he referring to having dementia and Alzheimer's, really? Is he showing himself out to have dementia? Because if you're that old and you're misnaming people from the past, and not just like normal people, but like you're, thinking, you know what I'm referring to when they say like, yeah, you go visit grandma that has Alzheimer's and she sees her son, but she calls him her husband's name because in that moment in her brain, she thinks it's 35 years ago or whatever the case may be. She sees her grandson and she calls him her son's name because he looks just like him as a boy. And then she's all confused and starts to cry. So you understand if you've ever gone to visit someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, Joe Biden may very well have severe onset dementia, severe Alzheimer's. I mean, all doctors and everybody else have said, yeah, it looks like he's lost it. He's not all there. So when Trump says he's shot, he doesn't even know he's shot. He's dead. He doesn't even know he's alive. That could be true because he just said, we can't have 4 more years of George. Now, we have to ask, is Joe Biden refracting to the early to mid 2000s? Or is he refracting to the 80s and 90s? We have to know. So where was Joe Biden's brain in this story? Was he referring to the 90s? Or was he referring to the 80s, the 2000s? What? And so then they say, well, this is what it is. They say, no, George Lopez was hosting. And so he said, we can't have 4 more years of Trump. So either you're saying that your candidate is so mentally feeble that he mistook his opponent, the president of the United States, for the moderator, and he mixed their names up, or you're saying he has dementia and Alzheimer's and recalled on a past president's name. You have 2 options, and they have openly said, no, it's the first one. It's just that he mixed up the moderator, George Lopez, the comedian. He mixed up the moderator with the president, Donald Trump, the most popular man in America. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? You know who does? Of course, the Washington Post. Because why not? There's some silly bitches, so of course they're going to immediately say, oh my gosh, he was just talking about George Lopez, you guys. Guys, listen. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden stumbled over a name when he was interviewed during the virtual I Will Vote concert. You mean iwill.org/go? Joe can't even say the name of the website right when he's doing his little virtual, semi-virtual rally. I say semi-virtual because he's outside, but no one else is. I Will Vote concert he was doing. The social media has lit up with claims that he has confused the President Donald Trump with a previous occupant of the Oval Office. And they phrase it that way because they don't know which. Yes, Biden did say George, which some social media users concluded was a reference to former President George W. Bush. Naturally, because it would be as if you were talking to, Hillary and he accidentally said Michelle twice or something like that. Talking about only first ladies who were never fucking president. But I digress. He confused Donald Trump with a previous occupant of the White House. Yeah, he did say George, but the Post omits this critical detail, they say. The interviewer was also George. It was George Lopez. Here's the breakdown of the facts from the Washington Post and the context surrounding the claims that are circulating online. They say claim is that in an interview, presidential candidate Joe Biden confused Donald Trump with former President George W. Bush. Okay, so then the AP says, well, there's a lot of details that were just claimed in that statement that no one's really actually claimed. No one said that it was for sure George W. Bush that he was confusing him with. And they didn't also say that he actually mistook George W. Bush for Trump, rather that he just said the wrong name and couldn't remember who the president was. That's not the same thing as actually confusing them for one another. So, of course, I'm a normal person. I'm not AP. I can just tell you that's a false claim. So here we'll say, it's totally missing context. Biden and his wife Jill were being interviewed by the actor and comedian George Lopez during the virtual I Will Vote concert on Sunday. The full video, right, this is more, the full video which Biden tweeted shows the former vice president being interviewed by actor George Lopez as a part of the virtual concert being held in support of the Democratic candidate. So why is he just a part of it if it's being held for him? He should be like the center stage guy, and he's just a tiny little, 13-minute clip or something like this. So it says Ana Navarro is also helping host, and so you don't see him on the screen. You actually just see the person signing. The Democrats now know that 2% of the entire population is hearing impaired, and so they know that they have to have a signer on. And look, I've been learning to sign a little, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to know every word that the little person in the corner is doing. So we're all confused as to who he's referring to. That's my point. We're all confused about who he's talking to because the only person that you see on the screen is a person who also knows how to sign and is interpreting for Joe. So that's what you see. You don't see George Lopez off the screen. And so can you think that maybe Joe Biden can see him? And maybe Joe Biden sees him and is seeing George, and his brain is, hung up on the name George. But again, Alzheimer's, dementia, the drugs that you're on to keep you out of bed, buddy, a little sleepy. Those are the drugs that are going to make you say, George, we can't have 4 more years of George. And then him be like, Trump. We can't have 4 more years of Trump. There it is. It's like he's not even hiding that he's, unable to think. But the Washington Post is able to unthink for him. And that is what they're trying to do for you too. They say Biden was speaking to George Lopez in the widely shared video. So that's that. Don't try to think that he was confusing Trump. He's actually very smart. In fact, Joe Biden graduated at the top of his class. So that's what I have to say. Let me know what you have to say in the comments below. Like this video, share this video, post this video on another website somewhere else so someone else can find it, like a little nice surprise. And then subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure your little notification bell is a dinging. And then do whatever else that you can do to keep America afloat.